Good morning, Bravo bosses, and welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously with me, your host, Dana. I'm sorry for those of you watching on the YouTube who are probably noticing I look a little worse for the wear. My hair is all over the place, and I'm just sitting in my I Take Bravo Very Seriously merch, which you can get at hurrdatmedia.com, covered in dog hair, and I'm just living my best life. And that's because I had a pretty crazy weekend, so I can't wait to tell you about it. But yeah, just don't judge my appearance. I'm very self-conscious about being on YouTube, but I'm tired, y'all. But I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. And I do think this will be a shorter episode because, like I said, I'm very tired and I've kind of been through a lot lately. But I also say it'll be a shorter episode and then it doesn't necessarily become one. So let's just see where it takes us. I want to start by telling you guys that I lost my job. So, as you know, because I have been complaining since probably the beginning of this podcast that I wasn't happy, and I'm really hoping that I can be happier now. I am absolutely terrified because I am a single girl who lives in Toronto where cost of living is extremely expensive. And I've never not had a job. I've had a job since I was 15 years old and I'm 41 now, and it's crazy. I'm applying for things, obviously, and I'm working as hard as I can. It's only been a couple of days, or not even. And it's really just been a weekend basically, and I just need to figure it out. But I really think long term, for my mental health, this is really the best. I mean, there's something that my therapist always says that, like, no job is worth your mental health. And honestly, when I have therapy with her later today, I'm not even quite sure what I'm going to talk to her about because all my problems were at work. So it's very freeing. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm in a glass cage of emotion. It's a lot of things. I may not even be showing it right now because I'm probably just delirious from being tired, but that is where I'm at. So I think that probably means I'll be putting out some more podcasts per week because what else do I have to do? So you'll be seeing a lot more of me. And what else did I want to let you guys know about? Oh yeah, the Patreon. Guys, join the Patreon. So I've been letting you guys know on a weekly basis to join the Patreon. Patreon.com/I take Bravo very seriously. You'll get access to my regular episodes. So episodes like this, you'll get it early. You will get them ad-free. You will get Q&A with me. You will get extra bonus content. But most importantly, you're going to get an extra 4 podcast episodes a month. So for the past little bit, I've been doing a special where I've been giving away my extra episodes for free. I was covering season 7 of Love is Blind on the Patreon, and as long as you joined as a free member, you would have access to the episodes. But now that the season is over and I'm done recapping it, I'm really hoping that the people who were free members decide to join as regular members. And I'm hoping that anyone else that listens decides to join as well. That would be really cool. And I just would love to see you guys there. I think it'll be a real fun time. And join the Patreon. I don't know what else to say about it. What else did I want to tell you guys? TikTok. Follow me on TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. I've been talking about this little series I've been doing called True Crime in a Bite-Sized Rhyme. So I'm basically giving you a true crime story in 90 seconds or less in a rhyming format. So I've done Jay Cutler, I've done Jax Taylor, I've done Luann de Lesseps, I've done Taylor Frankie Paul, I've done Tommy Manzo. Who else have I done? I did Farrah Abraham from Teen Mom. I think I'm gonna do Janelle Evans next from Teen Mom. That has been a popular request. So it's really fun. They're cute. They give you some information and in like a fun way, right? So definitely check it out on the Tickety Talk. And I did have another dog in here today, so that is one of the reasons that I am covered in dog hair. I told you guys last week that I was considering getting another dog. Obviously, that's kind of stupid right now considering I just lost my job. But at the same time, part of my dog's issues is that she can't be alone. At the same time, I kind of want to set her up for success for when I do find another job, that she is fully integrated. And my long-term plan for her was that she'd have a best friend, they'd be together, and that they would pee on these grass pad things, or just sort of like pee pads, but it's like fake grass, and they pee on them inside, but they wouldn't be alone. And so, yeah, I had this other dog come in today. Her name is Alice. She doesn't seem to know that's her name. But I wanted her to come into the apartment because I wanted her and my dog Judy I just wanted to see how they like got along in the space that Judy considers her space. And she seriously was so jealous. Like she couldn't handle that this other dog was like all up on me. She's like, "That's my mommy." And I'm like, "Judy, it's okay." So I don't know. Reach out to me at the Bravo Investigator in the DMs because I'm just not sure Like if it was a good fit, because I just don't know if over time they can become friends. It's so initially Judy was jealous, which is totally something I can work on. But then she was being like a little bit aggressive and they weren't really playing together. And then literally they just sat in different rooms and ate sticks and they just really didn't interact. And my main goal is for Judy to have someone that's her best friend, right? So I've definitely seen many people get a second dog and that dog ends up like ignoring the other dog and the two dogs basically don't interact for the rest of their lives. That's really not what I want for Judy. So yeah, reach out to me guys and let me know if it changes, because if it does, great. Then I'm not too worried about it. But I was kind of concerned. They were both in here for an hour and they just didn't really seem to acknowledge each other's presence. And if they did, it was in a negative way. So I don't know. I just don't know if it's the right fit. But let me know what you guys think, because I've never had two dogs, so I really don't know necessarily like what is normal, what's not normal, but at the same time, to each their own. Every dog is a case by case basis, right? So the reason I am so tired is because I went to a Jax and Tom meet and greet this past Saturday at the club called Early Mercy in Toronto. So I know they were just here. I told you guys maybe like a month ago, I went to this Vanderbrunch event at this place called Greta in Toronto. And then they were coming back. So I was like, yeah, I might as well go. And Lori Kay, Jax's publicist, was able to get a ticket for me and another content creator who ended up reaching out to me and saying, like, hey, I've been in Toronto this whole time. I've been following her this whole time. So I don't know if you guys follow Draw Me Bitch, but that's someone who I've been following for a long time who does a lot of these Vanderpump Rules drawings and magnets and lots of cool stuff like that. And then she collaborated on another account called Color Us Bravo. And I thought that was one person, and apparently it's not. So it's Draw Me Bitch and another girl named Julia. And Julia lives in Toronto, and Draw Me Bitch lives in LA. So I was like, wait a minute, there's a content creator that lives here. That's amazing. So I ended up meeting her for the first time on Saturday night, invited her into my home. We drank some wine and we went to the event. It was from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So don't make fun of me for being tired, because I typically go to bed at 9. But I was so happy that this event was 7 to 9, because guys, seriously, I am 41 years old. I have not even been to the clubbing district in Toronto in like 20 years. This area didn't even look familiar to me. This whole this whole vibe is just like not my vibe. I'm way too old for this kind of thing. So I was really, really excited that the event was 7 to 9. And then I think later it became a club, and then people would like stay for the clubbing portion, but I just did the meet and greet from 7 to 9. So Julia and I went and we stood in line for a little bit until we got in, and we're just talking to sort of people in the line. And it was interesting to hear where the fandom is these days, because so the reason that I kind of started my whole page, and I've mentioned this many times, is because I didn't have any friends in Toronto that were into Bravo, and was trying to find like a Bravo community for myself. And it turns out that they are here. They're just a lot younger than me, which is interesting, because the Bravo fandom and the Bravo community that I've made online, which is mostly US and Australia, are like late 30s, early 40s. And when I went to this Vanderbrunch like a month ago, everyone was like early 20s to mid 20s. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So Julia and I were interested in hearing like how old these people were that were coming to this event, how they decided to get into Vanderpump Rules, how long they've been into Vanderpump Rules. We were also thinking, Julia and I were thinking, maybe it's the inclusion of Vanderpump Rules on Netflix. So we were talking to some of these girls in line, and yeah, they were like 26, 27 years old. They just got into Vanderpump Rules with Scandal, which is what I assumed. And a lot of them were like, yeah, because of Netflix, because the first couple of seasons are on Netflix. And honestly, to date, Vanderpump Rules hasn't been that accessible in Canada. You have to have Hey You. So I think it really has created like a bigger market by having it on Netflix, that a lot more people in Canada are interested in it. And I guess it's just hitting the younger audiences. So that was fine. I just feel like there's just such a sense of community in the Vanderpump Rules verse, where it didn't matter how old we were. I walked in and I felt at home, even though it was a club. And but it was a very small space. It was mostly like a bar in the middle, like a huge bar, and then it was sort of like a square environment and just sort of like some couches around and some spare space. We also had a winner, so Lori and I collaborated to give 2 tickets away to some of our Canadian followers. So congratulations to Carly Huff, who ended up winning. I met her on Saturday night. She was such a sweetheart. She was saying how she had had the worst day of work when I had actually reached out to her to let her know that she had won, and it was like the best day of her life. And it was so cute. She had actually driven from 3 hours away. So she was actually even happy that the event was 7 to 9 because she had to drive 3 hours back. But she got to meet Jax and Tom, and it was a very, they had a very like interactive time with him because there weren't that many people there. And I guess, yeah, I'll just sort of recap the event. It was pretty tame, right? And I don't mean in a bad way. It was a pretty like laid back setting. It wasn't that busy. It wasn't crazy, or at least not when I was there. And I definitely say from the 7 to 9 portion. Everybody got to interact with Jax and Tom in a very meaningful way. And by the way, it was Schwartz, not Sandoval, just to clarify. So everybody got like a very meaningful interaction with them. And you guys may recall, if you are frequent listeners, that when I met Jax like a month ago at the Vanderpump, he was very rude to me. This time he seemed to be in a very good mood. It seemed to go well. So it was fine. Obviously, I didn't pretend that I had met him before. I pretended this was the first time. And Julia from Color Us Bravo had made him this really cool picture that she had drawn of him that said like number one guy in the group, and he loved it. And he's like, "Why is it creased?" He was like sort of mad it wasn't in like pristine condition. But yeah, they were very interactive with the fans. And then Jax and Tom went behind the bar and they started like making drinks for people and pouring drinks down people's throats, which they really loved. So it was cool. It was cool to just have them in Toronto, just because I'm always saying we just don't have these kinds of events a lot here. We don't have a lot of people that come to Toronto. Giggly Squad was here this weekend. I did unfortunately miss the chance to get tickets, but yeah, it ended up falling on the same night anyway, so I wouldn't have necessarily been able to go to both. But yeah, it was a pretty tame event, and pretty meaningful and interactive for the fans who were really there to meet them. Like I said, the fandom is much younger than I thought, but it was just really great to be amongst my people. And it was great to meet Julia from Color Us Bravo and definitely give her a follow on Instagram. And it's great to have made a new friend in this Bravo verse that actually lives near me. And now I have someone who I could talk Bravo with, who I could probably go for a coffee with down the street as opposed to living in a whole different country. So that's been exciting for me. I want to get into some Vanderpump Rules news though, because there's been a lot between everyone basically in the past week. So I guess it started with Lala. So on Lala's last podcast, Give Them Lola, she had Janet Caperna on, and noticeably missing was her assistant, best friend, podcast partner, Jessica. And at the very end of the episode, Lala noted that she always does like a peak and a pit of the week, and her pit was not having Jessica on the podcast anymore. And she said that Jessica has sort of moved on to something bigger and better, and they wish her all the best, and there's everything's great. So she didn't give off in words that anything bad had happened between her and Jessica, but the fandom thought it was a bit strange because, if they're best friends, she's been on the podcast for a long time, she's been a part of Lala's life. Like she was literally in the delivery room with Sosa, I believe. So it does seem weird that there wasn't at least a call in from Jessica as like a send off or a goodbye or something. So something interesting came up online. So Jessica ended up posting this like really like fire picture of herself. And then somebody commented, "This was handled so poorly, not your fault, but we listened to a pod with three of you and with three of you on the reg and have no answers, no send off or anything." And then Jessica liked it. So it's interesting. And the caption for herself was one foot in front of the other, y'all. What does that even mean? Like, I wonder if that means she's starting her own podcast. But what most people think that this has to do with is money. So a lot of people think that this happened on November 1st, which had some sort of timeline involving Lala's finances. And apparently, allegedly, Lala does not have very much money. So when it came to renewing, I guess, Jessica's contract, maybe they couldn't come to an agreement. I don't know, though, if that means they're going to be able to continue to be friends. Lala is a difficult person to get along with, right? And she has a small circle and she keeps that circle close. And she doesn't have that many people left. And Jessica has been one of those very core people in her life for a very, very long time. So it would behoove Lala to maintain those very, very close friendships, those people that have been through with her through the thick and thin. It would behoove her. It wouldn't be smart of her to, keep tossing people to the side that have really, really been there for her. So I hope that's not what happened here. I definitely agree that I think it is about money, but I'm hoping they're able to maintain a very good relationship just for their families. I mean, they basically travel together. They've gone to Hawaii together. They're very, very close, their families. So I really, really hope Lala is not doing this again. Then on Shenanigans this week, Sheena's podcast, she had Brock on and they just basically did like listener questions. And she had something interesting to say about Jax and Randall. So I'm going to play this clip for you from Shenanigans.
Jax and Randall come face to face at school. So did Jax bring up the money Randall?
No, they embraced each other.
It was so weird. We were our school barbecue. Marciano was with us, and I was like, Marciano, go eavesdrop, go listen to like what they're saying. And Jax was just talking about like being single and his new condo.
His new car he just got. His truck's getting delivered. I was like, this is a bro.
Doesn't this man owe you like $75,000? And you're just like, what is happening?
So, I mean, one thing you have to say about Sheena is she definitely gives a lot of tea, right? Like, she definitely tries with her podcast. I mean, I'm sure that's for the clicks and the likes and the engagement and the money. I'm not saying it's like for our benefit as fans, but she does definitely give us stuff. So that was something. I mean, it was definitely interesting. But it put a bad taste in actually a lot of people's mouth. They actually didn't love it from Sheena. And someone who definitely didn't love it was, you guessed it, Jax Taylor. So Jax Taylor had a little something to say to Sheena after this. So he posted a story after Sheena's podcast aired saying the following. Imagine having absolutely no content for your podcast, so you have to stoop so as low as to talk about your friend's personal life and private moments at your child's school. Anything for a click or a buck with these two. Very sad. So obviously Sheena and Jax are not in a good place, but interestingly enough, the fandom was actually on Jax's side on this one. People were like, "We hate Jax, but he's right." Because it is an icky thing, right? Like, don't talk about what's happening at the school. It really feels like you're trying to pull some tea out of your ass to, get some clicks and some money and some likes. You didn't do this out of, interest of your own. And but it is interesting that Jax all of a sudden is no longer mad at Randall, but then again, we don't know what conversations they may have had in the past year or two since Jax went on those rants and raves about Randall still owing him money. We really still don't know. So I don't know. Maybe they've made amends. And Sheena, shut up. Sheena, shut up. But anyways, someone we are very proud of in the Vanderverse is our lovely Brittany. So Brittany is opening up her own bar, and it is all happening for Brittany. So she says that she loves the partners that they have at Jax's, and they recently came to her and said, like, hey, we want to open a place called Brits in WeHo. So she's doing it. So she's going to be a part owner with her partners, and she said Jax's is still very near and dear to her, and she literally started that and helped so much with that, but she's going to have her own bar in West Hollywood right across from where she started at Sir. Tom Tom is 3 doors down, and she said it's the best location ever. So I think that's great for Brittany. I don't know what that will mean in terms of Jax's because obviously by virtue of her being married to Jax, she must have like shares or rights to Jax's. I mean, they both owned it to my knowledge. So I don't know what'll happen there. I don't know if she's going to continue to be a part owner of Jax's in addition to Brits, but I'm excited for her because I really do think she put a lot into Jax's, not just the decor, but just the weekly running of stuff, right? Like she had the Bachelor people there to do like trivia events and Bachelor nights and watch parties and stuff. And she was really like running the show there for a bit, right? So like, go for you, Britt. Good for you. We just want the best for Brittany. We want her to be happy. We want Cruz to be happy. And I think a business endeavor for Brittany that's all hers and her own, that she doesn't have to share and that she can sort of mold into something that is unique to her. But it'll, at the same time, it's still going to be the same thing as Jax's place, where she's taking over sort of a part of a restaurant that's already there. But regardless, they've been successful, right? They have been. I mean, with their trivia nights and their karaoke nights and stuff, they're doing the damn thing. It's hard to keep restaurants up and running in any location, especially places like West Hollywood. So I'm impressed that they've been able to sort of keep up the momentum and get people to keep coming in and creating ideas for events and getting people to come in and stuff. So I think Brittany definitely has a more of a knack for business than we necessarily thought she did. And good on you, Britt. Good on you, girl. All right, what else do we have to talk about? I guess let's just get into, well, okay, we'll get into a little bit of Teddy Mellencamp. I know it's boring. I know nobody cares about her divorce, but I guess I just want to say that like rumors have started circulating and pretty much been like sort of confirmed because apparently it's like an open secret that Teddy Mellencamp has been having an affair with her a riding instructor. Like, so you know that she rides horses, so she has somebody that gives her lessons, and his name is like Schroeder. Like his last name is Schroeder. No relation to Stassi Schroeder, but I think his name is like Nick Schroeder or something like that. Let me just check for a second. Again, I hate when podcasters check their phones during recording, but I do think it's important. Okay, yeah, Simon Schroeder. His name is Simon Schroeder. He's very unattractive, and he's married as well. So he's a horse trainer. His wife and him built their brand, and they switched up stables in September, and then I guess Teddy got involved, and they were both cheating on their partners together. But yeah, apparently it was an open secret amongst the horse community, which is so funny. Who's in the horse community? Lisa Vanderpump, Teddy Mellencamp, and Simon Schroeder of the horse community. So, amongst the horse community, this has been going on for months, but amongst the regular community, we just found out. So, I don't know. I'm curious what was going on in Teddy and Edwin's relationship, only as far as like, because we haven't really heard about it because she hasn't been on TV. So I'm really sort of curious what the catalyst was, but I've always sort of gotten a sense from her, just even listening to her podcast, that she's sad and doesn't, there's a loneliness to her in her voice. And maybe she didn't feel fulfilled, not justifying cheating whatsoever. I'm just saying maybe that was the reason. Maybe she didn't feel fulfilled in some way, and this man was able to give her some sort of validation she wasn't able to get from Edwin. I'm not really sure. Okay, let's move into the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So, in this week's episode, we have our first cast trip. Or was this our first? No, I guess this is our second cast trip. And then we're going to Palm Springs on a chartered jet by Bronwyn to this beautiful place that Bronwyn and Todd have. Now, apparently, they're renting it. And this is important only as so far as the events that come up later. So basically, what happens in this event is that they all go to Palm Springs. Heather is not invited because, as you will recall from the last episode, she tried to go to Bronwyn's house, tried to rectify things with her. For some reason, Heather just really wouldn't make amends with her, even though Bronwyn was trying, and now here she is, not invited to this couple's trip. A lot of people online are thinking like maybe Bronwyn was actually trying to like not invite Heather and never actually wanted her there because she's not part of a couple, but I mean, that's not what we necessarily saw. So the women call Heather when Bronwyn goes to the bathroom, like while they're all like hanging out at the pool on the trip. But then Bronwyn comes back and like basically they had called her to say like, "How are you? We miss you. We want you to be here." But Bronwyn's like upset that they like called her while she like went to take a piss. And she's upset that Lisa's not defending her because Bronwyn thinks that she did the right thing by trying to befriend Heather and by trying to fix things with Heather, but she feels like Heather is trying to throw people under the bus. And Bronwyn feels like it's a double standard because if Lisa were upset, it would be Bronwyn's responsibility to stick up for her. So this ends up becoming like this big thing, and Bronwyn and Lisa just cannot get on the same page. So Todd, Bronwyn's husband, ends up being really upset, and he comes to Bronwyn, and he's very much in like this very like authoritative dad figure sort of way, and he's like, "Listen, I told you I'm not going to be okay with fighting like this on the trip. Either I leave or John and Lisa should leave." And yeah, it just came off as a very like when you're like a kid and like your dad comes downstairs when you're having a sleepover and it's like, "You girls are being too loud." And that's just sort of what it sounded like because he is older than the rest of the group. He's older than all the men and all the women, but it was giving this very like, this is my house and these are the rules. And that's why I want to make sure to mention the renting part of it because this wasn't actually their home. Like, yes, they invited everyone on this trip, and this was a couple's trip where everyone was coming. They were hosting. It was definitely Todd and Bronwyn's trip, but it wasn't like their house. It was a house they were renting. So I just want to make that distinction. But I just thought this was really funny. So then Todd has to go tell John that Lisa needs to like stop being so much and stop yelling, I guess. And then John says he'll go talk to her. And then so he goes to try to talk to her, and Lisa just starts like braiding her hair and keeps just like going through her hair and braiding her hair while John tells her that Todd wants them to go. And she's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah." And so that's basically all we got from this episode. I just sort of feel like we're still in the same place when it comes to the Alibaba of it all. And I just want to sort of address that a little bit because even though it didn't really come up in this episode, it is still sort of going on online because Whitney was on Watch What Happens Live this past week, and she was basically throwing up and Adam under the bus. So, as you'll recall, Adam is the podcaster who Whitney mentioned a few weeks back was the one who told her, or she said told her, that Lisa was the one who started the Alibaba rumor. So Adam, Up and Adam, has stated that that is not true. He gave her some information, but said that he never said that it was Lisa, and that the video that we saw on Bravo was actually spliced together to make it look a certain way. But when Whitney was on Watch What Happens Live, she basically doubled down. She called Adam a liar. She said that Adam's husband is someone that she's really close to, and that he's from Utah and he's Mormon and he should know better. And then Adam went on his podcast this week saying, like, okay, she does not know my husband Jason at all. They've never met. She's met me multiple times. I can't believe she's lying like this. I've texted her. I've tried to contact her and say, like, I don't know why you're doing all these things when you know I have, like, all the receipts and all the text between us to show that I never said that it was Lisa. And she's apparently not being responsive. She blocked him. And I'm curious to see what will come of that. I mean, he's saying that, like, he doesn't want to release all of his receipts right now because he wants to wait until the end, and that's the advice that he's gotten. This rumor is so stupid that I hate that I'm even talking about it, but I just felt like I had to give you guys an update on it anyway because it is still part of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City universe. But that's basically it for last week's episode. It was basically just, this trip and this one fight about Heather between Lisa and Bronwyn. And I'm not sure who I feel is right. I get what Bronwyn is saying. I think she may have overreacted a bit. I also can see that it's very disrespectful that Lisa is causing this scene and fighting on a trip that's Bronwyn and Todd's trip. So I guess we'll see where this goes. But I do really love having all the couples on a trip. I think that's really fun. We don't really get to see the men as much on Salt Lake City. So it was kind of cool to see all the men interact. And it's funny how they always just get along. I mean, that's men, right? They always just get along no matter what, even though all the women are fighting. And they very much tried to stay out of it, except for Todd, who at one point was like, he knew that they were fighting. And then he's like, hey, I want to try to be helpful. Why don't we try to call Heather? And then Angie's like, we did that, and that's what we're fighting about. Thank you, Todd. Right, so everybody's talking to him like he's the grandpa that they're all thinking. I just can't. All right, well, let's get into the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which was part one of the reunion. We're going to get 3 parts, and it was a good part, but there was a lot of stuff that made me feel kind of icky. Some things I liked was that Emily saying basically to everyone, but mostly to Tamra, that you can't bully someone into not drinking. And she's obviously speaking about Shannon. Tamra continues to insist that Shannon drink in her program. And Shannon is livid about this because she's like, I had random drug and alcohol testing in my program. I was not allowed to drink. And Tamra is insisting and continues to insist that Shannon was drinking in her program, and that really pisses me off because Tamra literally should not be the authority on something she didn't physically see happen. Even if Shannon called her from this program and sounded drunk, Tamra was not there, so she should not be making definitive statements about something that she wasn't there to see. I can probably sound drunk on the phone if I'm like really, really tired. It's stupid. She's stupid. I can't. All right. So then the women start to come for Katie about lying about owning her home. And I think this is weird. It really sort of seems like a lot of the women are coming for Katie in this episode about things that are very unrelated to the things that they're trying to prove her wrong about. Like they're trying to prove she's inconsistent and that she always has a story for everything. But I don't know. It just felt very icky. Like Gina says, there's a lot of inconsistencies with Katie that make it hard to trust her. Katie said with regards to the whole like paparazzi thing that her paparazzi friend said it wasn't Heather who had called the paparazzi, but it was someone close to her. And then Heather starts to try to like come for Katie, and it was clear that she had like brought or like found this stuff in advance and had like planned to bring it up. So she brings up this story of apparently Katie sending a man to jail. So the story is that, well, Katie's version of the story is that she's driving. This man, he starts screaming at her while she's driving, fuck you and your kids. She's like, oh my God, what the hell? So then she pulls over. He pulls up in front of her. He starts harassing her. Her kids are in the car. He starts filming her. And Heather starts interrupting, saying, like, this is not the story that the police told. And Katie's like, well, that's the story that I gave. And Heather's like, well, that's not the story that the police told in the articles that I read. And Katie's like, well, that's not like what I said. And Heather's like, okay, yeah, like the police are gonna lie. Heather, what country do you live in? America? Yeah, the police lie. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but Katie is a woman of color. So it is very possible that the police lied and that the information in the file is incorrect. But regardless, Katie goes on to explain that the man was harassing her, her kids were crying, um, and that the police come and end up tasing the guy, and the guy goes to jail. Um, Heather's version of the story from whatever she read was that Katie followed this guy home. The reason he had been like harassing her by saying like fuck you, stupid bitch, because she was texting and driving, and apparently he had had a family member who had passed away because of that, so he was very angry. So Katie followed him home and then wouldn't leave or something like that. And Katie's like, none of this is true. Like, this is absolutely not the case. She said that she ended up missing her court date though because she didn't know she had one because they served her husband, because that was the address on her like license, and she was basically homeless at the time. Gina and Emily are sort of kind of like muttering to themselves that this couldn't really be possible because they can't really serve somebody else. But again, I do understand what she's saying. Like, if they send something to your home and you don't live at that address, you don't know about the court date. And there was also some other stuff in the news about Katie that had to do with her ex-husband and the custody of her children. Now, I had actually reached out to Katie, I want to say maybe a month ago, to do my podcast. She said yes. I was trying to coordinate dates with her, and then she just became unresponsive. But the main thing I did want to talk to her about was this, because I had found this like really, really nasty article that basically said that she had accused her ex of like beating up some of the kids and that he got full custody. And I was like, wait, how would that even happen? How, if he beat up the kids, would he get full custody? So I really wanted to talk to her about that. Now, this incident or this whole thing about the custody of her kids ends up coming up because Emily and Heather bring it up at the reunion. So I guess I'm kind of glad it came up here because it was very, very clear that this was really, really upsetting to Katie. She even said in the episode that like she hates talking about her ex-husband. So I'm actually really glad she didn't do my podcast because I would have felt really guilty to have brought her to tears or to have made her that upset, or honestly, even just to have made her mad by even trying to bring up this topic at all, because Emily went ahead and did it. So Emily's asking Katie about losing physical and legal custody of her kids. So Katie explains that her ex was awarded the kids because she couldn't provide a place for them to live. And this is obviously once she had left him, she didn't have a home. She was basically homeless and she had to figure out a suitable living situation for her kids. But then Emily sort of explains that that doesn't really make sense for legal custody because that has to do with fitness. And Katie's like, I don't know. Like, I just gave up everything to him because I didn't have a, supportive and suitable living situation for the kids. She said it took her 18 months to get custody back. She never missed a single day with her children when she had time with them. And she breaks down obviously, and then you see Heather like really know that she done fucked up, and she walked up to Katie and she's like, look, I'm really sorry about the children, like I didn't mean to bring that up. I am really sorry about that. So I am happy for that because it really does seem like Emily and Heather and even Gina a bit are really, really trying to come for Katie for like I said, minor things or minor misunderstandings, or I mean, even just this home thing or where she lived, just being like, well, you moved and then you moved again, so that makes you a liar. And it's like, I don't, the math is not necessarily mathing to me. Then we get into Jen and Ryan, and we have a lot of that here. And Jen hardcore defends her man. And as you guys know, I've been a huge Jen Pedranti fan this season, but I don't know, just like the Ryan of it all, it just makes me really nervous for her. Like, I get where Gina's coming from, where she says she's worried about Jen, and I feel that too. And Jen makes an interesting statement. She says she felt like Ryan would not have been mentioned in this gambling scandal, this whole Otani MLB situation, if it wasn't for her because she's on TV. But that's not true, Jen. Like, if he was involved in a crime, then he would have been, right? The fact that she's blaming herself when he's the one who allegedly did something wrong, it just feels really sad. Emily explains that that's not true because Ryan was involved, and then Jen saying, like, that's not true. So I'm going to explain this whole MLB Otani situation the best I can as per how Emily explained it in the episode. So Emily says the following. She says, for Ryan to have immunity, he would have had to exchange information about Matt. And then Jen's like, that's his best friend. But like again, Jen seems really dim right now. Like, that is how immunity works. It's an exchange of information. So Emily explains the dirty business that Otani's interpreter had a gambling addiction. He makes all these bets with Matt Boyer. Matt Boyer is an illegal bookie. And in order to pay his debts, he stole money out of Otani's account. That money went into Ryan's account, and it was in Ryan's name. Ryan then moved the money into marker accounts in casinos, cashed the money in for chips, and gambled with it. And then Ryan and Matt took 32 trips to Vegas between 02 and 03. So that's the gist. So Jen argues that Ryan's name was on the account and that's it. And Emily's like, well, that's against everything that I've read. That's not the extent of it. And Jen's like, well, I read that like your in-laws like support your whole life, right? And so Jen is definitely taking a stance in this reunion of like defend your man to all costs. And she's definitely continued to do that online post-reunion and everything, which I understand. I worry for her. I mean, things keep coming up with him, and I just worry one of these days. I just don't want her to end up in a Teresa Giudice situation where you've trusted someone and you've trusted someone, and then you've signed a paper, and all of a sudden you find yourself in jail and you're away from your kids. You know what I mean? That's what I worry about for her. All right, well, that's the end of the episode today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you BBs next time. Thank you for listening. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hurrdat Media. If you want to listen to this show or any other episode, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Hurrdat Media's YouTube channel to watch my full-length video podcast episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at I Take Bravo Very Seriously and at The Bravo Investigator. You can follow me on TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. Head to buymeacoffee.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously to buy me a coffee. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously for 4 extra mini episodes a month, early episodes, ad-free, Q&A, and exclusive access to bonus content. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.